Of the players and owners meeting, and I think there was a little bit longer meeting. Day one, day two, I'm not sure how long the meeting was. We've got an expert here, Evan Drellich, to talk about this, and we'll talk about this and more on this episode of the Locked On Astros podcast.
Welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Heisman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chansey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Heisman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Stros. Find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can I find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter and Instagram, and at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive, always Stros.
All right, Mr. The Athletic himself, former Houston Chronicle beat writer, now big reporter dude for The Athletic. Where can he find you? And tell us a little bit about the book that you're in the process of writing.
Yeah, former Houston resident. I'm Evan Drellich. I'm on Twitter at Evan Drellich, and I am writing a book about the Astros called Winning Fixes Everything. It should be out late this summer. It covers basically the last decade in Houston and reverse engineering. How did we get to the sign stealing scandal and getting to the bottom of the management culture in Houston? You know, what really happened in the Jim Crane, Jeff Luhnow time running the team. And I'm sure it's something that you guys and I can discuss once we get a little closer to the release of the book. But it's something that I've worked really hard on for a number of years. Ken Rosenthal and I were the ones who broke the sign stealing story, and there's a lot to explain that people don't know about a lot of different things. And I'm really looking forward to getting it all out there, because it's been a long reporting journey for me.
Well, we appreciate you, sharing that much. Like you said, you've been knee deep in CBA talk. You've been, just these meetings have been really just slow. It has been this arduous process. I know as fans and commentators, it's like, just give us something to talk about, because if we don't have baseball, we want to talk about something. So being, I guess you're not inside these talks, right? Y'all are basically there as players, as owners, as people are arriving. What is the latest that came out today from the first couple days of talks?
Yeah, the talks start to blend in a little bit for me at this point. I've covered all the core economics talks. So there's core economics, and then there's other topics that are not unimportant, but aren't the things that are really going to hold everything up. I've been in person waiting outside of all the core economics meetings. And more often than not, most of these go the same way, where one side will make kind of smaller moves. They'll always try to position moves as significant and large, but realistically, the gaps are still very large between the two sides. And today was kind of like the day before, and like other meetings we've seen recently. The Players Association is no longer asking for 80% of guys with 2 years, at least 2 years of service time to get to arbitration. It's now 75%, right? So they dropped off 5% from their ask. They made a little increase in their ask on minimum salary, and then they agreed to take one draft pick off of this lottery system, right? Both sides want a lottery, but MLB wants 4 picks in the draft lottery. Now the players have gone to 7 picks. It was 3 and 8 coming into this week. So both sides have taken 1 pick off. So, it's a lot of smaller movement. And that's not going to save opening day. I think they know that. And I don't think, frankly, the objective is totally to save opening day. It's both sides are trying to make long-term gains for their own benefit.
We've got an excellent question here from Jay Roberts. He's one of our regulars. He wants to ask you, Evan, would you say one side or the other is being more unrealistic than the other?
Yeah, I don't want to hang on a technicality. Unrealistic is an interesting word here. We should talk a little bit about what this process is, right?
Right.
Okay.
And on some level, like everybody can have an opinion on what is fair. You can, Jay can, all of us can. Um, at the end of the day, what matters is whether either side sits there and goes, "This is good enough for me," and if they don't think it's good enough, then this is like a federally granted thing. They have this right to not work. It's really the only recourse you have, where you can withhold your services if you're the players, and if you're the owners, you can prevent players from giving their services. You can lock them out, which is what's happened here. Um, so, it's hard to tell people when you've got hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, which is what we're talking about here, if not more. And let's go beyond the hundreds of millions of dollars. You haven't had a work stoppage in this sport in 25 years. Last time you had a work stoppage was 1994, 1995, when you had the strike. Uh, you've got something of the future on the line, because if the players don't succeed here or feel they don't succeed, well, they might not want to fight in the future. And that's a major thing. If the players can kind of keep their resolve, remember, this is historically one of the strongest unions in certainly the strongest union in sports, and considered one of the strongest unions in the country. So the stakes are high, is what I'm getting at. That's what I'm trying to tell you, is that there's just a lot on the line for either side. And so it can be hard. I feel a weight when I'm writing and reporting on this and analyzing it, to kind of be respectful of that there really is a ton on the line here, even for groups of people who have a lot of money. The players have, not all players have a lot of money, but some do. And certainly every single owner is massively wealthy in such a way that most people can't imagine. So that said, it really depends on your question of realistic, right? You want to sit there and go, the players are asking for too much. Well, is it too much? Are they asking for something that's unfair? It's really about your conception of fairness. And then you can sit there and go, well, the owners aren't budging at all. So are they being unrealistic? Maybe, but also, why would you budge before you have to budge if you're the owner? So I don't mean to duck you. I think most people agree and believe that over the last 10 years in baseball, over the last 2 years, last two collective bargaining agreements, the system has moved more in the owner's favor. So if you accept that premise, then probably the realistic solution is, okay, you give some back to the players, right? But not everybody has to agree with that, and that's the end of my filibuster. But it's a complicated question, guys.
All right. All right. So I kind of want to go back to this. I know you kind of touched a little bit on it, but you have Max Scherzer, who's making millions and millions of dollars. He's representing the average Joe who's just trying to get the minimum salary raised. And I know that the players kind of asked for the contract, the minimum salary to go up a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what the Players Association asked for today. And what do you think that the players are looking for overall?
I mean, look, overall, both sides, it's largely, not exclusively, but almost exclusively about money, which I don't think should be surprising. Yeah, Scherzer, it's tough. People talk about these negotiations as millionaires versus billionaires. It is easy to forget that a lot of players, particularly now as teams go to younger players, right? Younger players are cheaper, and they're churning through guys more and more. A lot of these young guys don't become millionaires. You play a year in the big leagues or 2 years and you blow out your arm. After taxes, no, you didn't make $1 million unless you were a bonus baby, it's a signing bonus. It's really a question of the pie. Okay, there's a total amount of money that the sport brings in, and there are different ways to calculate that. People like Scott Boras, and others will point out that owners make a lot of money off the things that are kind of indirectly connected to baseball, like a ballpark village. As If Jim Crane invests in restaurants around Minute Maid Park, that's kind of an ancillary advantage to owning a baseball team. Is it brings people to a certain area, and these ballpark villages are everywhere. So their owners would say, well, that should be part of the calculus, and some people can say, no, that shouldn't. That's not directly the baseball team. The players over time have seen their pie, their slice of the pie, shrink some, and so it's really about reclaiming that. And so what's a fair slice of the pie? Most people would say 50%. You can argue that it could be a different split. But that's what it is. The players want different ways to make more money than they were. And then within that, it's about getting some of that money directly to younger players. It's about disincentivizing tanking, which of course the Astros, were poster boys for. And
you don't say. Come on, Evan.
sure. I mean, a lot,
Yeah,
service time manipulation. I mean,
exactly.
all these different things that there's competitive integrity, but competitive integrity ties into money as well.
Yeah. So speaking of money, it's kind of like having enough money to get Built Bar. So Brett, tell us a little bit about Built Bar.
Okay, Evan, I don't know if you've ever watched our show or heard about Built Bar, but I'm telling you that I just got 3 boxes in the mail today. I got a mixed box of Built Puffs. I got 2 boxes of Built Bars, and the hits just keep coming with these things. It's amazing. I think if we distributed Built Bars to the owners and the players, maybe it might speed up the process. Maybe not, but I'm always positive, always Stros, and I'm always positive, always Built Bar. They have this new Built Puff. It's the only protein-infused marshmallow puff. They're fluffy marshmallowy treats wrapped in 100% chocolate. They have amazing flavors like cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. They're so good. And all the bars are great because they have this amazing lineup in macros, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. If you are the healthy conscious guy or girl and you just need a snack that's not going to break open the calorie dam, then get a Built Bar. That's right. You can get flavors like mint brownie, coconut almond, white chocolate cookies and cream this month. Check them out. They're always having great specials. But for you right now, you can get the same discount that I get, that Eric gets, that all the Locked On hosts gets. And if Evan taps into this, he can get. Go to built.com and use a promo code LOCKED15 for 50% off your first box. That's LOCKED15 for 50% off. Go to built.com.
Alrighty, so I kind of want to move on to something that everybody, you kind of touched a little bit on it, Evan, but who has the most to lose? I know that I think Brett said that Trevor May on another podcast said that the owners, that he thinks that the owners could take this till May, that if they don't come out to an agreement that they could take this lockout till May. Who has the most to lose between the owners and the players?
I mean, really, this is one of those questions you can slice multiple ways, and there's a lot of those types of questions with this. The owners took more of a hit in 2020 than the players did.
Right.
So from that perspective, the owners already have not made as much money recently as they would normally expect to or would like to. The owners, as we well know, have a lot more money on an individual basis than any of the players do. So you could always argue on that basis that it's always the players who have more to lose. Having more to lose might not actually be the worst thing. It can give you more resolve potentially. If you want to read it that way. It's do you consider something to lose the standing and the respect and the admiration of that players association that's been there for decades, right? You go back to Marvin Miller and the changes that they've been able to achieve over the years. The only sport that doesn't have the salary cap is something the players are very proud of, and that's not going to change now at this time. But so there's different ways to look at it, as a spiritual question, as a financial question. There's a lot on the line for both. I mean, but I think at the end of the day, one side is considerably wealthier than the other. So, who's the money going to matter more to? Probably the players.
We have talked a lot about there are charts out there that you can look at revenue in baseball, and you hit on it earlier, how revenue for the owners has gone up. And when we had Ben Verlander on recently, he said, the revenue for the players has kind of trickled down, or either flatlined or gone down. And so they're really wanting more of the pie. Where MLB came back today and said, we'll give you some pre-art pool money for like 30 players, but they want it for like 150 players. I mean, like you said, there's this huge gap. With that being known, with that being said, Manfred is a lawyer by trade. Manfred was put in this position because he's really kind of there to do the owner's bidding. Do you think that they will stand pat and elongate this strike because they have a firm date already set in mind? Like, we can go to this date, but at this date we've got to move on? Or is it not that predictable yet?
I'll correct you real quick just because it is important.
Okay.
If you remember, it's a lockout, not a strike. There is a difference. Doesn't matter
Okay.
for most people, but it is. A strike is when the players say we're walking out.
Oh, I'm
A
sorry. Did I
lockout is
say
when you
strike?
say, yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Oh, I apologize.
No, it's okay. So the question of whether there's a date, yeah, I mean, I think both sides. If you think about it, there is a math problem involved here, and I'm not an economist. Wish I was. Could probably make me better equipped to handle these things, but math that's not my forte. You can calculate. Both sides have economists who calculate the net value of what they're asking for, right? So anytime there's a change in a proposal, so let's a pre-arbitration bonus pool, that's obvious. It's the amount of money you're committing to it. The owners are saying we'll give 20 million, and the players are asking for 100 and if I'm remembering right at this hour, 115 million. Right, so that's a straight number. But the other things that aren't quite as straight a number. Well, what's the dollar value of getting a guy to arbitration sooner, right? And you got to do some math there. And actually, MLBTradeRumors.com, I think the guy who runs it, Tim Durkis, or Dirks, if I'm saying it wrong, did a good piece on that the other day. But anyway, so you can put a dollar value on every component of a proposal, and then you add it up. And, all right, this is how much money you're asking for. So they can also calculate how much money you lose on a per game basis, right? How much money in player salary are you giving up for every day of canceled games?
Right.
And then you again, I wish I could fully explain the math to you, but you weigh those against each other. Where is the turning point where it's really not worth it for either side, for the owners or the players, to keep fighting? And I'm sure they can calculate that point, and I'm sure they might even have an idea right now. I'm speculating, but you would think both sides would want to know where that point is. And it also depends on the proposals of the moment, right? What is on the line? How much are you willing to lose to get it? And there are longer term things that can be a little harder to put quite a precise dollar value on.
Yeah, one of the things, just to wrap up the thing about Trevor May, is Chris Rosen and him were talking back and forth, and he said, but make no mistake, he said, we're going to have a season. He said, to not have a season would be absolutely disastrous. So there's going to be baseball. It's just, when is it going to start is the question. And so that was kind of reassuring, I guess, as just a fan of the game. But so when you see these guys come to the meetings, are they willing to talk to the reporters? Do they give you much like airtime, or they just, you get to watch them go in and come out? What's that like, being a reporter on the ground there?
You talking about the players?
Yes, the players or even the owners, just being there around the meetings. Are they talking to y'all at all, or are they just going in and out?
Well, it depends on kind of the setup, right? So if you go back to Dallas in late November, early December, when the lockout began, that was inside a hotel where the two sides were having these meetings, and reporters were inside the hotel and were able to kind of more uh, directly interact with people, because and look, a lot of times they won't talk, and they'll leave conversations to kind of point people. Some of those are not all of them are on the record, but
Right.
uh, no, it's not like the players and the owners are kind of stopping and constantly holding court. Here in Florida, the setup's different. It's at the spring training stadium of the Marlins and the Cardinals, and there's a gated parking lot that the players go into, and the parking lot that the league officials go into, and then they're inside the stadium, and they're not inviting, believe it or not, reporters into the stadium. So we're hanging out outside, watching for movement, because you can kind of see when people are going back and forth a little bit. You can see when people leave and arrive. And we've literally, in the last 2 days, talked to people through a fence. So, no, the players aren't stopping and the owners aren't stopping, and talking. I've seen at least Tony Clark, who's the head of the players union, sign a couple autographs, and you got fans coming out with signs, saying we want baseball and stuff like that. But it's a lot of waiting around. A lot of reporting on baseball, like even games. It's a lot of waiting around. I'm not saying it's a bad life. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of waiting around involved.
So it's kind of like Evan can't bet on anything being finalized soon. So speaking of betting, talk about bet online real quick, Brett.
So yeah, so football season might be over, but basketball's in full steam ahead right now with pro and college hoops. From the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired head coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And speaking of football, I mean, the Texans keep shoring up that coaching staff. They talk about how they need more running. Are the Texans going to win more than 4 games this year? We'll have to see. So if you go to Bet Online, they typically have the sports book open the quickest. They have the best numbers. BetOnline.net is the source for hockey, boxing, UFC, odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information you need. Head to the website today and use your mobile device and learn more about the trends in action. Bet Online, where the game starts.
All right. So, Evan, we've got several different things that the players, the owners are kind of far apart on. Which one do you think at the end of the day is going to be the one that keeps them really far apart? Is it the thing that they really haven't addressed the past 2 days, which is the CBT, or is it the minimum salary that they keep on kind of getting further apart on? Where do you think they're going to have the hardest time finding common ground on?
CBT might be the literal last issue that gets resolved. That wouldn't be surprising. It is a very big issue. But the gap on minimums is still pretty large. The gap on the competitive, I'm sorry, on the pre-arbitration bonus pool, still pretty darn large. You kind of go down the list, and it's the one thing that has been kind of positive today and yesterday is the draft order stuff, right? The fact that you now have the lottery, the union took one place off of its proposal, and the owners added one. Positive from a movement standpoint, right? Like if you're trying to, if all you want to see as a fan is movement, kind of without regard for whose movement, that's a good thing. So yeah, I think CBT is going to be there at the end. Getting, how much money's in that pre-arb pool, that bonus pool, that's a new thing that's going to start in the sport, unless they blow it up. But at this point, it looks like it's going to happen. The players are asking for over 100 million. The owners are offering 20, so that's a large gap, and so where do they end up with on that? So there's a lot, and that's why things can happen quickly. They haven't happened quickly yet, but they can at some point. At some point, there's going to have to be some breakthroughs.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw in a quick question
Yeah.
related to the Astros. Are the Astros gonna get enough wiggle room in the CBT to re-sign Carlos Correa, or you don't think it's gonna go up that much in 2022?
Oh, look, I don't think the CBT is the
Is there a reason?
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, look, I'd have to see where they are with it, but
I think there's 20 million at last I
yeah,
looked.
the penalty for going a little bit over it is not that bad. In
Right.
the current in the system that just expired. Now you got to see what it's going to be in the new one. But that's one of the big sticking points is that the league is trying to make the penalty to go over it worse than it was now. And the players certainly are not going to allow that, or at least thus far have not allowed it. But the CBT, the thing you got to remember about the CBT is it can be something that can basically be used as an excuse, right? You've seen big market teams say, "Well, we got to stay under it." Well, why do you have to? You're choosing to, right? These are choices owners make for their own reasons, and they have the right to do it. They have the right to try to make as much money or as little money as they want. But to look at it as like, well, because the CBT exists, they absolutely couldn't do it. No, it's a choice, right? It's how do you want to spend your money? How does Jim Crane want to spend his money?
Yeah, that I think is an excellent, just on point, answer with that, and that is one of the frustrations in Houston. One of the things I know that the players are trying to avoid or change is the whole tanking issue. But when I heard the idea of the NBA style lottery draft, I was like, wait, have you watched the NBA? Like, don't teams
Yeah.
kind of tank because they want to be in the lottery? Like, if the Rockets start winning too many games, they're like, whoa, hold on, because right now they have a 40% chance to get a top 3 pick. So, like, why would they want to start winning now? You see what I'm saying? I don't understand it. Maybe what do you think about the NBA lottery? I mean, I'm sorry, the NBA style lottery draft for baseball. Do you think it's good for baseball?
It adds some uncertainty to getting the first pick, right? When the Astros were going
That makes
through and the
sense.
Cubs were going through, like they knew they would get the first pick if they had the worst record, right? And so
Right.
you at least you remove some of that. But this is the heart of the argument right now, and that's what you're seeing this week is the players think the more picks you include in that lottery, and factually this is true, the more picks you include in the lottery, um, the more randomized it is. The more you're leaving it up to literally a lottery than your record. And um, the owners, they they don't want to get rid of entirely the ability to. They don't dislike tanking in its entirety because the thing, and this was true in Houston, it's been true in a lot of other places. The thing about tanking is that you don't have to spend money. It's a way to rebuild through your farm system. What's the farm system? The farm system is where cheap players come from, right? It is a cost saving thing, tanking is. And, there is also an understandable element of look, if a team's bad, you do want to give them a way to get better. Um,
Yeah.
it's not like you don't want a system that literally the bad teams can't ever get better. I think in sports today, these teams all make so much money that, if they want to get better, they could just go out and get some players. But um, so that's the fight. That's the push and pull. The owners want to be able to kind of have a shot at these higher picks, and the players would rather, the draft be kind of divorced from that, or more divorced from that
All
for
right.
performance.
Right. So to kind of end this the podcast, we really appreciate you coming. I want you to kind of give us your gut feeling, Evan. When do you think that this lockout is going to end?
Guys, I don't know. I think regular season games are going to be missed. I like I've said that multiple places at this point. Um, whether that's April or May, whether it's like 5 games or 30, well, here's the thing, like you guys asked me earlier, like without knowing the math behind it,
Right.
it's hard, right? If I were an economist who had access to all the numbers, or could like reasonably guess at all the numbers, but they know where their break points are. They
Right.
know where how many games they can lose are. But I'll tell you, and I think I've made clear, like when you think about how much is at stake here, okay, we talked about 30 minutes of what's at stake. What do you think a few games in April matter to these people?
Right.
Why would you care? You're talking
And
about
it's
hundreds
5
of
years
millions
too.
of dollars.
Yeah.
You're talking about the future of the sport, and like what? Okay, you miss an opening day, and then what? I just don't think opening day is really the thing.
I think that's I mean, you would have to know all the ins and the outs. But hey, I just want to say this. We want to thank everyone for listening. We want to thank Evan for coming on, and thank y'all for making Locked On Astros your first listen every day. Locked On MLB Prospects host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast.
And Evan, one more time, where can they find you on Twitter, and where can they find your writing, and whatever else you want to plug real quick?
Yeah, just Evan Drellich, Drellich, on Twitter. Winning Fixes Everything is available, Amazon, Target, but order it from your local bookstore if you can do that. And I'm at theathletic.com for my writing. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you for coming on. And guys, we'll be back when we hear some more about the CBA talks. And that's all we got for this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. Hopefully we get some better news tomorrow, but go Stros.